Good evening, everyone. And we have
Hey.
one of very prominent TEDx speaker, Yolanda Tyler, here, talking about what is mindful play learning. She claims herself to be self-proclaimed playologist, passionate playologist, and I'm just curious about what does it mean. So I will pass it on to Yolanda to describe herself and talk about what interests her and what has she been doing so far in the field of mindful play learning. So over to you, Yolanda.
Awesome. Well, hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world today. I'm so honored to be here. So, thank you so much, my friend Medhuri, for having me here today, morning for me. So, my name is Yolanda Dion Tyler. I am a self proclaimed playologist, and I am the chief playologist and founder of what's called Mindful Play Learning and my name coin business, Yolanda Dion. In a nutshell, I help communities find their passion and their purpose through mindfulness and play. So, Matt Harry asked the question to me, what is a playologist? So, I am simply a person that loves to play in every aspect of life. I love to look at the business of play and the psychology of play and figure out how we can incorporate that into every aspect of our lives. I like to focus on play from childhood, so zero, all the way through adulthood to age 125.
Wow.
So I think play is just really important. I'm also a professional speaker and storyteller because I love to tell stories in regards to anything that I talk about. I feel like our stories always relate to helping us to grow and to learn. And then I consider myself a mindful play expert because I've been working with kids and families talking about play for over 25 years. I'm also a yoga teacher. Specifically, I have various certifications specializing in children's yoga and mindfulness. So I just really love mindfulness, especially mindful play. And I just want to spread the word to the world on how they can do more of it.
That's wonderful. I'm sorry, I think something got choked in my throat.
Hey, I will say you had asked me another question in regard to this introduction too, and people may want to know while you're
Mhm.
clearing your throat. I'm also a mom, which I think is the most important thing about me. I'm a mom and I'm a wife. I have a 17-year-old daughter that I have really focused on mindfulness and play with her throughout her lives. And I'm happy to tell all of you that my daughter's preparing for university or for college, and she's writing her college essays, and her college essay is about play. So I was really surprised that she wrote about play, but just very grateful and much gratitude that that's something that has stuck with her and that's something that she chose on her own to write about. So definitely had tears in my eyes as a mom when
I'm
she read it.
sure. I'm sure. Yeah, yeah. Something you're passionate about and your child following that. I know how it feels. I totally agree with you. So that's wonderful introduction that you gave about yourself, Yolanda. I have been talking to you, but there were a few new things that I learned about you. And let's come to our question. That is, we see children playing, and we just had a discussion sometime before, right? We were talking about how young children all the time they love moving their bodies, right?
Right.
So, how do we see, or how do we, inculcate this mindful learning in a young child? First of all, if you can, go in deep about this understanding of what is mindful playing and
Right.
how this toddler can be, supported in a way that every movement that they are doing is mindful.
Right. That's a good question. So before I get there, let me start here. So we know that play is a crucial aspect to the importance of every child's development. To me, play is comprised of three simple things. I call them the three C's of play. The first C is community, the second C is creativity, and the third C is cognitive development. So, in understanding those things, community is basically like a feeling of fellowship with others due to like our commonalities, right? So, when we began to play as little kids, we started creating our community, right? So wherever you see a child at, typically they want to figure out who people are. Who's that boy? Who's that girl? What's your name, right? So much so that in school for little kids, we do like name songs and introduction songs. As we get older, we do icebreakers and we go to networking events. On here, I did an introduction, right? So that's all creating community. Creativity. You are so creative, Madhuri, by doing this show that you do for our global community, which is creativity. Creativity is simply the use of our imagination or our original ideas or ideas we garner from other places. So when kids play, they use their imaginations to think up all of these grand things, right? When you are with your child and you're talking to them and you're just letting them kind of speak freely about things, a lot of times they're telling stories about whatever. It could be about their day, it could be about what they see right now, it could just be about something that they've imagined in their mind. And if you don't have those conversations with your child, please take some time out to do those. My favorite place to do that is at the dinner table, eating dinner together or any meal, and letting my daughter just talk about anything. You kind of see it when you allow them to do their own thing. Creativity comes out when they're playing with Play-Doh, or you said your daughter was riding a horse, or when they're just looking up at the sky. So it can be hobbies or just day to day life, right? Creativity. And then cognitive development is a really big one because we talk about how people learn and how they acquire skills. So, cognitive skill development is kind of like the progressive building of skills such as attention, memory, and thinking. All of these things can be learned because we're constantly practicing things and constantly doing things repetitiously. Sometimes we tend to think of cognitive development and skills as things that people are innately born with. They were born as a genius, or they have this learning difficulty that they were born with, or something developed over time. However, with cognitive development, it's all about learning. Everyone learns in different ways. We just have to plug into how our kids learn, and eventually they plug into how they learn as they become adults. And then for us ourselves, we have to recognize how we learn. You know, my daughter, when she was 3 years old, one of the most fun things that I remember doing with her was I took her, she may have been younger actually, maybe two. I took her to this dance party event and I watched her kind of network at two around this party and kind of tell other kids to dance with her. Hey, dance, dance, dance. But that was something that I learned about her because guess what? At 17, she's a dancer. She loves ballet and lyrico and all types of dance. So that was something that I learned early on about her. And I honed into that thing and helped her to develop it. Right. So those things are really important as we're looking at play and thinking about play because play, as simple as it is, it's so complex and there's all these things that brings into the forefront as we think about play. So hopefully that answered your question.
That's so true. Yeah, and it brings us to the point where it's also reminding us as parents and caregivers or adults in our children's life to be very, very mindful and observant of what, as you said, your daughter was going and networking with people and dancing with them, and that's what you've found out and then honed that skill, right? And that is why now
Yes,
she is a dancer. See, so you figured out what enticed her and then you
right.
honed on it, you worked on it, you supported her to become a great dancer maybe someday. So yes, I think when we are talking about mindful playing, it's not just about the child who's doing an activity or who's just moving around or who's playing, but it's more about our mindfulness while observing the child when they are doing these activities, isn't it?
Correct. Yes, yes. So we're talking about mindfulness,
Right.
and some people may really understand and be able to internalize what mindfulness means. But let me explain just a pure definition of what mindfulness is. So, mindfulness is a mental state that we achieve by focusing on one's awareness on the present moment while we calmly acknowledge our feelings and what's going on around us and taking it all in the present moment without judging, but just being aware, right? So we teach our kids how to be mindfulness by empowering this to be aware of their breath, how they breathe, being aware of their thoughts happening all around you, but also being aware of the present moment. Right now, we're engaging in this conversation. And of course, a part of mindfulness is for some people, we're in this conversation, but I have on these yellow earrings and this pink shirt, and there's comic books behind me, and there's a lot going on in this picture. But hopefully, it's all fun and bright, and there's a whole story coming about, right? So, one of the things that I like to do with children or to help parents learn how to do mindfulness with their children is something I call the five senses of mindfulness.
Mhm.
And this is going to take you back to when you were a kid, probably. I think it's something that we do globally all over the world is we teach kids from an early age about their five senses, right? So, I tell kids, and you guys can do it with me. Cover your eyes and then peekaboo. I can see with my eyes. And then close your ears, open them, and listen. You hear the sound of my voice because you can hear, or I can hear with my ears. And then go ahead, stick out your tongue because typically I can taste with my tongue. And then take a deep breath in. I can smell with my nose. And then wiggle your fingers. And I always like to tell the kids, tickle yourself because I can touch or feel with my fingers or my skin, right? So with those five senses, that all brings you to being aware, self-aware. It's as simple. Mindfulness is as simple as that. So I know when people talk to me about mindfulness, they say, it's hard to do mindfulness and meditation because I can't sit for a long time and just quiet the mind. But if you think of the mindfulness as the five senses, it's really not all about calming the mind. It's just being aware of everything that's going on in the body, right?
Yeah, that's so true. I remember when I was working with toddlers, we would take them to the park and we'll just make them sit silently in a circle and then we'll ask them to close their eyes and then just listen to the sound of everything around them.
Yes,
And then
I
what I
love
will
that.
yeah, and what I would do is I'll just highlight on one aspect. Say for example, I'll say, can you hear the rustling of the wind? Can you hear the sound of a bird chirping? Or
Yes,
sometimes if the aeroplane is flying by, look, I think the aeroplane is flying up in the sky.
yes,
So, one thing at a time, and I could see the excitement in the child's eyes. And not only that, as you mentioned, all five senses. So, this is just about hearing. But we can also talk about the texture of the leaves, the texture of the pebbles, and the branches, the twigs. There are
Correct.
so many things available in our nature that is easily, accessible. So for children to
Yes.
experience that through the senses are brilliant for their cognitive development as
Right.
well. While we are eating, while we are
Yes.
eating, we can talk about the taste that is, that we are having. With every food has a different taste. Every recipe that we cook has a different flavor. So we can
Yes.
talk about all those stuff. So I totally agree with you over there. These five
Oh,
senses are so important for these children, right?
so very important. Yes.
Yeah. So, coming to my next question, you have already shared certain strategies for the activities to do with these children. Now, we see these days, even the youngest of children are easily seen with, either a phone or a tab in their hands.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that has restricted their play. The hands on experiences through
For
those five
sure.
senses are greatly compromised right now,
Sure.
right? So, do you think children with technology is a great idea? I'm sure you will say no, but it's also difficult because many
I
are
might
working
surprise you.
many are working parents, right? And
Correct.
sometimes you just resort to giving them a phone or something for and maybe for some time. So in such cases, is there a possibility to strike a balance between children spending time on screen and then going outdoors and having those hands-on learning experiences?
Very good question. So let me say this. Surprisingly, I'm a huge fan of technological advances. I think that as we grow in the world, technology is needed and things that people find for us to be able to use in our lives are important. We're connecting right now through the magic of technology. You're where you are, and I'm where I am. We've never met in person, but through the beauty of this thing, we are able to connect. So I think it's important to teach kids why those things are important. And at an early age, they can learn through looking at certain things on technology, whether it be shows or games or different things that might help them to learn. My suggestion is to set limits using those handheld items and looking at the screens, set boundaries for your family as to where those things can be viewed when you're in the home or if you're on the go with your child, and the limits, having time limits to them. I've had and help parents to have bells or alarms that they set to say, when you hear the sound, that's when we're going to turn this thing off. Or you get it for 10 minutes, and maybe a 2-year old doesn't know what 10 minutes is, or a 3-year old or 4-year old may not really understand and conceptualize time just yet, but you can check in with them as they're getting close to that time. Or if it's something that is a timed show or a timed learning thing, make sure that you're choosing things that have time limits on them. So I might find a show on YouTube that is 10 minutes. So that way, when it goes off, we're done with that. Or I might find a song on YouTube that is 3 minutes. And when that song goes off, we're done with it. So you can set the parameters for however long you want those things to be done. So setting limits and having boundaries. Your boundaries would be, we don't bring the phone to maybe the dinner table, or we only view the TV in the living room. My daughter doesn't have a TV in her room. There was a point where in her life we ended up putting a TV in her room to be able to occupy her for certain amounts of time. But as she got older, because she knew the limits and the boundaries that we had already set for her through her life, she chose probably about 3 or 4 years ago to take the TV out of her room when we redecorated her room because she felt like she liked the idea and it felt more comfortable viewing the TV in the family area where everybody is. So if you begin to set time limits and boundaries early on, your kids will begin to pick up some of these habits that you've set forth for them.
That's so true. I like the idea of putting an alarm so that
Yes,
actually sometimes we also get so busy that we
yes,
ourselves will forget to go and give them a reminder call as to you have only 5 or 2 minutes left. So
correct.
if we have that clock, at least it'll remind us as well as the child.
Right. You know, yesterday I was at the park with my godson and I told him, I said, you have 5 more minutes to play on the playground. And another little boy that was playing with him, he said, I have 5 minutes too. And that was just so telling of it's such a good skill set to teach in the home with other things because then when you're doing things that may not be related to, say, technology, those boundaries and those limits still help in everyday life too. Do
Yeah,
your homework for 5 more minutes. Do this for 5 more minutes. Brush your teeth for 5 minutes. Like whatever we're doing, setting those time limits and boundaries, it creates consistency for kids. And consistency helps kids to feel comfortable and at ease.
yeah,
And for us too, right?
yeah. Yeah, it definitely gives a sense of security as to I know what to do at this moment.
Yes, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Okay, so moving on to our next question, or I would say rather, a very common concern when children are playing in a group, especially young children. There are times when, two children want same toy to play with, or two children want to play, say, at the same time on the swing in the park,
Right,
right? And that can be a cause of conflict,
right,
right?
right.
In such situations, how do you suggest the adult to, handle those situations? Because, it can be siblings, it can be
Right.
friends, and maybe the, child, the parent of the other child is not too, receptive of any kind of no to, told to their child. So in such situations, how do you think one can cope up with?
So I'm going to blow your mind and help you to think a little different for some people. I am not a fan of sharing. I know that sounds really crazy. I owned an indoor play space for about 11 years, and I've watched children play and be forced to share toys and a parent take away a toy because they've said your time is up, right? So I always like to give this concept when I this example when I explain this concept. So this is my cell phone, right? If we are somewhere and a stranger walks up to you and they say, I need to use, let me take your phone. It's my turn to use your phone. You're going to say, no, this is mine, right? And for some people, they may not want someone to use their phone because you don't know if they're going to make now it's a little different, but a long distance call or do something on your phone that's going to charge you. So you kind of want to keep this to yourself because you kind of like are in control of what happens on your phone, right? Because it's yours. So you don't have to share your phone. Okay. So when kids are playing with something, whether it be a communal toy or it's their toy, if they're in possession of it, I think we need to teach the skill set to our kids of boundaries and understanding how to find something else to do. If a child is playing with the red toy and there's a blue toy available, and but that kid wants the red toy, we have to start early on teaching those kids how to go play with the blue toy instead of the red toy because the red toy just might not be available today. Because today, Matt Hurry is playing with the red toy. So the skill to me is teaching them how to find other things to do and also how to play open ended. So if I'm doing something, but you don't want to do it, we can collaborate and you can still do your own thing and I can do my own thing, right? Sometimes we can come together and those things can kind of mesh. But if you want to play and pretend the sky is red and I want to play and pretend the sky is blue, it's okay because it can be both because we're imagining and we're using our creativity. So, right can be both during play. It can be right can be both things. So it's teaching those skills early on with for our kids like just because she sees this thing as one thing doesn't mean that you have to see it the same way as the other person. I want to swing on the swing. Okay, but she's swinging on the swing right now. Let's go play on the slide. Let's go climb over here. And when the slide and when the swing becomes available, then you can use the swing. Because sometimes it's not okay to tell the kid that's on the swing, you have to get off because that doesn't happen in real life. So sometimes it's teaching the self regulation rather than teaching the you can take away at any time.
But what if this child is not ready to leave the swing, even if they have been sitting for a long time, and the parent is also not willing to ask the child to move away from the swing? In such situations, what do we do? Should we still give up, or should we go and ask and try?
Right, I understand. And I think that for me, it's not about giving up. For me, it's just about finding something else to do because there's so many other things to do. You may not, so say it like this. We may go out to get ice cream today, and you expect when you walk into the ice cream shop to get chocolate. But when you walk in, they only have vanilla and strawberry today. So now you're faced with do I leave to go somewhere else to get chocolate? Or do I stay and make another choice today? I think it's the same thing. You're not always going to have parents that will be present and take their kid off the swing. You're not always going to be able to take something from someone and give it to someone else. So I think it goes back to the person and teaching them the self regulation skills and how to move forward and move on. And it's a hard thing and it's a hard mindset to undo because we, I think, globally have been taught like to share. And there are some aspects to that for sure. But I think that a lot of the conflict we have is because we feel like we should be able to take something from someone when we want to take it because we've been taught that that's called sharing. I think if we learn how to collaborate within our own beliefs and our wants, then we'd be able to be a little bit more conscious of one another and respectful of one another's boundaries and all of our own differences. So, yeah.
That was very beautiful that you said, the concept of sharing sometimes becomes, my turn, your turn, and then the conflict starts in. But yeah, if
Yeah.
we collaborate, then yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, and that is the meaningful sharing when we collaborate. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
The
And
more,
it's a hard concept. It's so hard when we've been drilled, it's been drilled into our minds for so long that sharing
yeah,
means taking away.
yeah.
So, yeah.
I think those small conflicts that start at a very, very young age and we do not help the children to self-regulate is what
Correct.
manifests into bigger forms, and all the
Correct.
cause of, big wars and conflicts, I
Yes.
Yeah, those are manifested out of those small,
Right.
things which we were not mindful as young children, or maybe as
Right.
parents, we did not, help our children be mindful of those small things, right?
Correct.
Most of the cases I have seen that either we say it's all right, or we say no, it's yours and go and grab it. But there
Right.
is nothing somewhere in the middle where we say, all right, let's try to do it together,
Correct.
right?
Or let's do it together. Right.
Yeah.
If he's on the swing today you might not be able to swing. However, can you ask him or her, can you push him or her if they want to be touched?
Yes.
But they may not want to be touched today. However, they might say, yes, push me. So that becomes a part of the fun. Or can you sit and see how many times they go back and forth? There's so many other things that we can teach
Yeah.
there's other things that can be done.
Right.
So, and I know it's hard sometimes because we always want the turn, but unfortunately, that's not how it works as we get older. So we just have to learn that skill set early on, I believe, and I think it will help to diminish some of the conflicts later on.
That's so true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We are having a conversation, and I felt it so spiritual. I think I do this a lot with my daughter as well. And many times we do say go grab it, and then I come back and I reflect on it, and I realize that grabbing is something we are teaching now, but what shape will it take as she's growing? Because,
Exactly.
all the conditionings manifest in a very deeper form as children are growing older, right? So,
Right.
what we are instilling in our children is so important when they are very young. Yeah, I
Correct.
totally agree with you.
Yay.
So, yeah, there is another question that I came across. So most of the schools these days, I think it's global phenomenon nowadays that everybody is saying play-based learning, play-based learning.
Yes.
I would want you to, put some light on it, and also share some of the play-based educational approaches that can benefit the child's cognitive and social development.
Gotcha. So play-based learning simply in its simplest form is helping the kid to consciously be aware, understand, and articulate things right then. That's cognitive development, basically. It allows for learning during play and it allows kids to think critically as they're learning. That's pretty much what play-based learning is. It's critical thinking while you're playing. We have been really conditioned to thinking that kids have to sit down and write to do things or to have a piece of paper to learn, or it has to be something that's so planned out for a kid to learn a concept. However, I think that the challenge for us as adults is to kind of think backwards, and to think about how we learned or tried to learn when we were younger. And for parents to really watch their children when they're in their purest form, that 0 to 4 years old, um, and watching them in the genius of play. I do a talk about the genius of play and talk about how 0 to 4 kids are like at a genius level when it comes to play and learning and just soaking in so many things. I think that there are a couple of things that we can do to hone in on those things from an early age. I love yoga or moving my body. So I say any form of moving your body or yoga should be playful, because we know that yoga is not just the asana, it is various things. We won't get into that today, uh, but it's more than just the asana. So helping your kids to do yoga in a playful way, using the fingers, the finger plays. Finger plays help to learn math. because we're counting, right? And it's helping them to their dexterity and to pick up and just all of the things that we're talking about and singing about different things during finger plays, excuse me. And then music and movement, listening to music, because music opens up the possibilities and it makes our world colorful. And different music may have us doing different things. Music may tell us the steps that we need to do. Music may just cause us to just want to move our body. Music is just listening and hearing the different sounds and trying to pull out the different instruments that we may hear, or the tone of a person's voice may cause us to feel a certain way. It can feel, and here in America and maybe in other places, Halloween's coming. Um, so it's spooky, or it can be something that makes you feel like shocking, or it makes me feel happy. So music and movement that goes along with that. Sensory play is my favorite. Getting into things and being messy, having a bowl or a bucket or a bin of something that kids can just play in and just be free and create within that. So you're helping to plan out some of these things by providing the music, providing the actual items for the activity, but then you're letting the child's mind kind of explore and do these things, crafts, and then simple games, planning out the games, telling the kids how to do it, but allowing them to alter things as they need to in the game to fit for them. Whenever I play Uno with my daughter, especially when she was younger, she would say, well, can we do this? And sometimes I would be like, well, no, these are the directions. But do we always have to follow the directions? Because we all know, as educators and parents and just adults, grown-ups, people learn differently. Some people learn by seeing, some people learn by hearing, some people learn by doing. We're all very different. So yeah, those are some of my ideas for that.
What would you suggest for parents who have very young children, children below 3 years, as to what kind of activities they can do with their children, which will instill this kind of mindfulness in them in terms of,
That's
yeah, yeah, because we may have children with different kind of sometimes disability also. In such
yes.
situations, how do you, advise parents to engage with their children to support their development?
So one of my favorite things is yoga play during story time. Story time, you know, garners literacy, and there's so many things that happens during story time. But I'm not a fan of story time where a child has to just sit and listen. I think that there can be a cadence of sitting and listening, but the cadence is sit, listen, and do. So with your story, tell the story, but allow the kids to act out the story with you. Bring in some yoga movement to the story. Add theming to whatever you do. In my mindful play learning curriculum, there's always a theme. So this past week with my children that I actually teach one class right now because I love that location and I love to continue to teach. We taught about shapes. Uh, Earlier this month, we talked about fall, and then we talked about fire safety. So everything has theming, so adding themes to it. And then as you're doing the stories or the sensory play, making sure that you're adding in like the cadence of the movements and the other things. But story time, I love to do yoga story time because if I'm telling the story of brown bear, I'm walking like a bear. And then I'm grabbing the food and I'm eating it. And there's so many things like the shape, the food on the book might be a shape. So I might turn myself into a shape. So there's so many things that I'm doing to help that child understand what's happening in that book
Yeah.
because they may not be able to read. However, if I help them to act it out, they will be able to begin to tell me the story. And eventually, the skill of reading comes along with those other things.
Yeah, yeah. I resonate with what you're saying. I have right now my nephew here, and he's not even 2 yet, and he's still nonverbal. But
Yes.
I have been doing these movement songs with him, and now
Yes.
he comes and he just calls me out, and then he shows me the action, hands up high, and then he tries to jump. Or sometimes I just, twirl him, so he'll be like, "Come, come, twirl me." So all those
Yes.
actions are the ways of signaling that he understands and he wants to do those activities, and
Yes.
eventually he will catch the language as well. So yeah, it makes so
Exactly.
much sense. And every time he is doing anything, I'm making an action out of it, I'm making a sound
Right.
out of it. And yeah, it makes so much difference for him. The parents were so worried about him, but now he is producing sounds.
Yes.
That's only because with action we are also giving him sounds, and it's working
Right.
beautifully. Yeah.
Yes, that is so good. I love to hear that.
Yeah. So, Yolanda, now we are coming to the end of our session, and I would like you to share some of the takeaways from our discussion today that a parent should focus on with their child at home.
Got it. So, of course, I'm going to go back to the three C's of play. If anything, today, write down the three C's of play: community, creativity, and cognitive development. So, play fosters creativity and problem solving. The use of imagination during play directly helps to shape the perspectives on our community and our surroundings. And then also, play allows the ability to integrate emotion with cognition. So that's your cognitive development. So the three C's of play: community, creativity, and cognitive development.
Yeah. And would you like to share any references? Is there any book or a song or anything that you would like parents to try it out at home with their children?
Very cool. So shameless plug, of course. They can always go to mindfulplaylearning.com and check out my website. I have videos that I've uploaded where I have some examples of sensory play and books that I use. I love grabbing books that are authored by local authors, and I love to yogafy and movementify them. I don't have specific things that I like to refer just because I believe that you can take anything that you love and use some of these concepts with them, and then you could kind of open up a world of just joy and light and just this love of play and mindfulness. So, yeah,
Thank you so much. And I'll be sharing your details with all the audiences over here. Thank
awesome.
you for your wonderful insights, Yolanda. And we have our audience here. If you have any questions, please share here on the chat or please unmute yourself and ask, and we are here to answer them.
For sure. And once again, also, if anyone ever has any questions, you're always more than welcome to reach out to Mad Hurry to ask her, and she can forward that to me, and I can give that to her to share with her community. Or you can always reach out to me as well. I'm always open to answering questions and helping to facilitate this mindful play life for parents and my global community.
Absolutely. Yeah. I hope
Well, thanks
all
for
of you
having me
had,
today.
yeah, and I hope all of you had some insights to take away with you all. And yeah, please reach out to us whenever you want, and we will answer your questions whenever you want to. Yeah,
You're
Suprita Shetty says, thank you so much, Madhuri and Yolanda, conducting this session. Thank you, Suprita.
welcome. Is there I know you have a few more minutes. Is there anything that you would like to see specifically? I always have toys and fun around me, and I can always facilitate like anything that's fun too if you wanted that. So
So
you let
I saw your TED talk, and you
Yes.
started with a song. And
Ah,
the last time we were having a conversation, you also mentioned that whenever you have a session, you start with a different song and you end the
right.
session with a different song. So we didn't start
Correct.
our session with the starting song.
And however, we can do that now because we have some time. So if you're ready, here we go. Just go ahead and back up from your camera and let's go. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, stomp your feet. Boom, boom. If you're happy and you know it, stomp your feet. Boom, boom. If you're happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, stomp your feet. Boom, boom. If you're happy and you know it, shout hooray. But not if your kids are asleep, I know. If you're happy and you know it, shout hooray. If you're happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, shout hooray. If you're happy and you know it, do all three. Clap, clap, stomp, stomp. Hooray! If you're happy and you know it, do all three. Clap, clap, stomp, stomp. Hooray! If you're happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, do all three. Clap, clap, stomp, stomp. Hooray! Now let me see your fingers in the sky. Give them a wiggle. Bring them together like a Hoberman sphere, and we're going to breathe together. So take your ball and make it really, really big. Bring it in really small. Now, this time when you take it out really big, fill your belly like your ball. Take a deep breath and blow it out. Take another deep breath and blow it out. Now do it by yourself. One more time. Close your eyes. Peekaboo. Close your ears. Listen. Stick out your tongue. Take a deep breath. Fingers in the air. Tickle yourself. Now be aware. And I always say, peace begins with me. Thank you guys for joining me today. And I'm going to say bye to you too. Skinnamarink dinky dink, skinnamarink doo. I love you. Skinnamarink dinky dink, skinnamarink doo. I love you. I love you in the morning and in the afternoon. I love you in the evening and underneath the moon. Skinnamarink dinky dink, skinnamarink doo. I love you. Thank you for having me today, Manuri.
Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.